Right now, there are over 2 million people incarcerated in American prisons, and a small percentage of these people will be behind bars for life. Of course, when hearing this terrible news that you'll be incarcerated for the rest of your days, you may freak out. And that's exactly what happened in the courtroom to these guilty convicts who reacted to their life sentences. And in some videos, the judges will make your jaw drop more than the convicts themselves. I'm Charlie, and today we're going to look at guilty convicts reacting to life sentences. Before we get it on, why not subscribe and press the notification bell too. Chatty convict. There's nothing worse than that one kid in class or the office who won't stop yapping. I bet you wish you could just tape their mouth shut. Well, it turns out that if your workplace is a courtroom and you're the judge, then you can do just that. This took place in 2019 in Louisiana, USA. One convict would not stop talking. Judge Marilyn Castle kept telling him to be quiet, but Michael C. Duhon was having none of it. The judge said that if he didn't stop talking, then he would be gagged. But Michael ignored the judge and kept on talking.
So listen, you will get a chance to talk. I'm gonna gag you in 1 second, so just listen to me.
He kept trying to object to what the judge was saying.
That's a violation of the HIPAA law. That's a violation of the HIPAA law, Judge.
Here we go. I'm gonna tape it, and then I'll...
And he was also offering arguments against the inclusion of evidence in his trial. And he was also making arguments against the inclusion of certain pieces of evidence. He was told he had to speak through his attorney, but wouldn't. And that's when this happened.
Real clear. If you spit on, attempt to bite, or injure any of my deputies, you're going to have a bad day.
None of that.
Oh, you clear.
Put the tape on me, man. We done with this shit.
As you can see, a cop came up behind him and taped his mouth shut. We've all heard teachers in class say, "I'll tape your mouth shut." Or at least that's what I heard a lot in school. But I never thought anyone would actually do that in real life. I almost don't agree with this. I think people need to be able to defend themselves. The funny thing is, even though this guy's mouth was taped, he kept on talking. I guess with some people you just can't shut him up.
That's what it is.
We'll go back on the record. Mr. Williams will have a chance to speak.
And I'll be monitoring everything I say.
Go ahead.
But do you think this guy deserved it, or was it way too far? ALEXIS SEXTON. This one took place in 2013 in Ohio. ALEXIS SEXTON was only 19 when she had to plead guilty to doing something terrible to a baby. She was babysitting 14-month-old Noah Philhauer. ALEXIS intentionally dropped Noah on his head many times. This caused Noah to have brain swelling and brain injuries, and according to his parents, he will never fully recover. Noah also had 3 broken ribs when he was taken to a hospital. His grandfather asked the judge to give ALEXIS the maximum sentence.
I just want her to receive the maximum amount you can give.
And that's exactly what the judge did. ALEXIS was sentenced to 15 years in prison, and when she heard this sentence, she began crying in court.
Victims, I am truly sorry. I wish them nothing but the best in the future. Your Honor, all I really want is to get help.
Her face went all red and she said she was sorry. She also said she seriously needs help. But unfortunately, it's way too late for that. ALEXIS's mother also said that she deserves some help. Her mother said ALEXIS is suffering too.
She never told me this because she thought people would turn against her and think she was crazy.
But because ALEXIS had done terrible things to Noah, she had to go to prison. Tony Farmer. This is likely one of the most famous courtroom freakouts of all time. It took place in 2012 in Ohio. Tony Farmer was only 18 at the time. Tony was a promising high school basketball star, and he was likely going to go into the NBA. But unfortunately, he had kidnapped his girlfriend. He also badly injured her, which is why he found himself in jail. In court, his sentence was read out by the judge. That's when he turned to his attorney and said, "I got 3 years." He then said an expletive and collapsed to the floor.
On that count. As to count 3 of that case, the robbery, which is also a felony of the 2nd degree, the court orders that the defendant shall serve a term of 2 years on that count as well.
In the background, his relatives were crying about the verdict. But why did he faint from this verdict? Well, he was expecting just 1 year, but Judge Barker added on 2 years, which he didn't know about. You can really see the shock and fear in Tony's face when his verdict is read out.
A term of 2 years on that count as well.
And this later went on to become the infamous bruh meme. But contrary to popular belief, he never actually said bruh when he fainted. This was added in after on a Vine video. Jaleel Hoskins. Jaleel Hoskins is a really bad guy. He took the life of a mother who had 5 kids. And then he put her body into a trash can. This took place in Grand Rapids, Michigan. He was sentenced to 100 years for what he did. But after he was sentenced, he threw over the podium. He also yelled at the judge and the family of the victim. Many officers then had to restrain him and take him out of a side door. But the victim's family can be heard crying in the background, which is super sad. I can't believe he's angry for getting justice, seeing as he was the one who did what he did in the first place. I'm not sure how he expected to get away with what he did because it was so terrible. This is one man who definitely does not deserve to be free on the streets. And I really have to give it to the cops who saved the day by taking him out of the courtroom. Judge Jumper. This next guy is said to have put a child in an ice-cold bath. He then severely injured the 4-year-old with his fists. And this led to the toddler passing on. As the judge is reading out what he did, he gets very angry. It's almost as if he doesn't want to confront the terrible things he's done.
That you put this child and other child in a... No, that's not happening.
Now, he is restrained with handcuffs and a belly chain too. But this does not stop him from trying to break out of his chains. 3 cops grab onto him to make sure he doesn't jump at the judge. The convict keeps saying that the judge is talking about things he doesn't know.
Man, I ain't gonna let you, man. I ain't gonna let you sit here and say no crap, man. No, man, because he's man.
Eventually, he keeps trying to break free and he won't stop. So he has to be escorted out of the courtroom because he could become a danger. Just imagine if he lunged at the judge or some people in the courtroom. It's something you don't see every day and is a major freakout. Sadly, in the background you can actually hear his victim's family crying, and that makes things all the more sad.
With ice cold water. Anybody says anything back there around?
I'm not sure why these guys get so angry after doing these crimes in the first place. As the old saying goes, if you can't do the time, don't do the crime. Margaret Allen. This one took place in Florida, USA in 2011. Margaret A. Allen was on trial. That's because she'd taken the life of her housekeeper, Wenda Wright. She had thought Wenda had stolen money from her purse. Things got messy and she ended up taking her out using a belt. She then tried to bury her in a shallow grave. She asked the judge for her life to be spared.
I know it's not been easy, but I want you to know that you are.
But the judge was not having any of it. Instead, she sentenced Margaret to death row.
Sorry when you said thank God that's over.
No, that's not true. I didn't do it.
In 2019, she actually tried to get this overturned, but a court upheld the sentence. Her reaction when hearing her sentence was sobbing. She also said she was sorry for what she did.
I know it's not been easy, but I want you to know that you are.
But for some reason, Margaret said she didn't do it. She said that because of this, she should not be on death row. The terrible thing is, Margaret's own young daughter was present when she did this. I can't even imagine the impact seeing that would have on a small child. Judge Freakout. We've already seen some convicts go pretty crazy in these videos, and also one judge who raged so much that he put tape over a prisoner's mouth. But I'm certain you've never seen anything like this. It was captured on a courtroom surveillance camera, making it slightly hard to see. But the judge basically gets so angry that he gets out of his seat. It then looks like he's about to tussle with the convict.
Put your hands behind your back.
There's then a struggle and the convict has to be restrained.
Put it down.
You normally see cops doing this, but sometimes courtrooms don't have cops. So I guess that's when the judge has to become the local hero and become the judge and cop simultaneously. Convict Freakout. This one comes from a teen convict in California, USA. For some reason, he's trying to break free of his restraints. He was sentenced to life for doing something terrible to a woman in a bathroom. When he's sentenced to life, he begins to break down and cry. You can also hear his family arguing and crying in the background. He's being dragged off to life in prison, so I guess that's why he's so upset.
Both teacher and student facing lengthy jail sentences and a life branded as sex offenders.
His name is Fernando El Gato, and during the trial he maintained that he was innocent. If he is, then I feel really bad for him, but if he isn't, then of course he gets no sympathy from me. However, I do feel bad for his family either way. Just imagine how bad you'd feel if your son did something terrible and he was spending life behind bars. Drake Campbell and Jacob MOUZON. This one comes from South Carolina. In 2016, 2 teens were sentenced. Jacob was only 17 and Drake was only 18. They were charged with armed robbery, also burglary and taking a life. They'd basically broken into a home to steal things. But things had gone wrong and they took someone's life. When their sentence was read out, them and their families both cried in court.
Brings 17-year-old Jacob MOUZON and 18-year-old Drake Campbell to tears.
The person that they're making him out to be.
One friend of Jacob said, "Jacob's my best friend. I know what he did was wrong. I completely understand that, but he's not a bad person." That may well be the case, but he still made a terrible mistake by taking a life. You may feel slightly bad seeing them cry in court, but you have to remember what these guys did and that someone lost their life because of it.
Brings 17-year-old Jacob MOUZON and 18-year-old Drake Campbell to tears.
The person that they're making him out to be.
War Machine. No, this isn't anything to do with war. Instead, it comes from the trial of a mixed martial artist. This took place in 2017 and features Jonathan Paul Copenhaver, but he's more commonly known as his MMA name War Machine. During a 2014 incident, he badly injured his ex-girlfriend. His ex-girlfriend cried during her testimony and said how bad it was. She had various broken bones, including a broken nose. She also fractured her ribs and lost teeth. War Machine was sentenced to 36 years to life. And when he heard this, he really freaked out and got angry. He said he thinks he should just end it all right now.
I should have killed myself by now. There's no reason right now that I shouldn't be in the dirt right now, laying right next to Aaron.
But of course, with him being in prison, that's not going to be a possibility anyway. But now it's time to make your voice heard. Comment below who had the biggest freak out in court. If you want some more amazing videos, then check out my second channel. But as always, thanks for watching. There's some more videos you may like on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.